Hello.
All right, we apologize for the technical difficulty. Just to reiterate what I was saying, my name is Sumer. I head the study abroad division at Jitin Chawla Center for Career Development. A very warm welcome to all of you. A very nice way to kick off summers since we're talking about graduate applications. They're under process. For those of you who are willing to apply to about for fall 2024, fall 2025. So this webinar is catered to all of you. So a lot of students have typically asked us over time that they're not doing well in GMAT GRE or GMAT GRE. Is it mandatory particularly for getting into top schools internationally overall? And our response has been no. It is not mandatory in a lot of universities internationally, and we have been specifically placing a lot of students to colleges in the UK, Australia, the US, as a matter of fact, even Ireland. So a lot of institutions do not require GRE GMAT. There are a lot of universities that still consider GMAT GRE to be an optional system comparatively, wherein a lot of international students, whenever you apply, it's on the basis of the experiences that you've garnered so far, and as a matter of fact, even with regard to your academics. So, keeping that thing in mind, we will begin with this webinar and we will discuss about what kind of options do you have. As a matter of fact, we will be answering your queries specifically, so you can use the chat window specifically to apply and ask your questions, and then we will respond in a very timely manner. I have my team along with me, and they would keep on popping up questions for me, and that is how we'll specifically help you out overall. So great, let's begin with the webinar. So why don't we talk a little bit about what kind of programs are specifically there internationally that you can specifically apply for. So if you were to look at international applications, of course, there are a lot of institutions which specifically where you can do a master's in management, a master's in finance, a master's in marketing, a master's in strategic management, a master's in specifically fashion management, sports management. There are new age careers, masters in business analytics, as a matter of fact. On the other end, we are specifically also considering engineering related courses, specifically where GRE GMAT is not required, GRE specifically. So I'll also highlight the differences between the GRE as well as the GMAT, and what you should be specifically taking on. So just to give you a bit of an introduction specifically, so we've been out there in and out, specifically doing workshops across schools, across universities, across colleges, and we've been able to concentrate of about 28,500 plus workshops overall, and we've been able to cater to more than 1.5 million students in India and internationally, right? So the idea with us is specifically that we do not specifically have affiliations with universities. We don't usually pitch you institutions in that particular manner that you have to absolutely go to this institution. Our job is to specifically guide through the way in terms of which kind of institutions can you get into overall. So keeping that thing in mind, first let's talk a little bit about who should give a GRE versus who should give a GMAT. So, comparatively, a lot of international students, whenever they're faced with this particular question, that who should be, what should I give? Is it the GMAT or the GRE? So, GRE typically is for a lot of business related courses, but it also serves a purpose for engineering related programs as well, for science, for humanities. So, typically, you have to give the GRE exam. But if it is GMAT, then typically you're more aligned towards the business related areas. A GMAT is scored out of 800. From next month, it'd be 805 with the GMAT focus. And the GRE standard exam is for 300, is out of 340. So keeping that thing in mind, the main idea over here is that if probably you've tried attempting the GMAT exam or the GRE exam, but the scores are not very high comparatively, so that's not the only aspect that universities consider whenever they're looking at it. Of course, there are a lot of institutions that have a benchmark score overall, but it doesn't really matter comparatively. Even if you're getting say a 311 on 340, I've been able to place students at Columbia University with that kind of a score. I've been able to place a lot of students at even University of Michigan, Georgia Tech, University of Southern California. So those kind of institutions specifically do not have that kind of a thing that you need to have a very strong GMAT or a GRE score. It also depends on the weight of your application, the data, the voice, and the talent that you're specifically showing across as such. So keeping that thing in mind, of course, there are multiple options that you can specifically consider. So let's move forward and just look at a few institutions in this manner. Next. So one of the best schools, particularly in the US, University of Chicago Booth, they have an exec MBA program which does not require GRE or GMAT, but of course you would have to have a very strong work experience in order to specifically get through this particular program. Of course, there are other programs in this particular institution where GRE, GMAT may not be waived, but one of the main highlights of this particular institution is the exec MBA program. So GMAT GRE is not required. You need to have a lot of years of work experience and typically managerial work experience. So managerial work experience would relate to how many people are working under you, how have you developed their careers along with yours, how have you delegated tasks, the initiative taking aspects of it. All of those kind of things specifically come across through University of Chicago, Booth School of Business. So number one program, of course, in terms of the exact MBA aspects of it. So you can definitely take a look at it. Next. Other than that, another program which is there, of course, if you want to, specifically apply online, is the UIUC online IMBA program. It's the Internet MBA, particularly. Again, there is no GMAT, GRE required. Maybe if you're a working professional and you specifically don't have a lot of time in terms of taking out that kind of time to study and things on those particular lines, and you're contemplating a particular MBA overall. So for that particular reason, this would be a pretty strong choice comparatively if you want to consider UIUC. So UIUC is a public institution located in Illinois. This is Urbana Champaign, one of the best colleges for computer science as such. So with this program, you have the ability to self-pace things as such. So maybe if it's a very busy month for you or something on those particular lines, you can specifically take a pause and then you can restart comparatively. So that is also a great choice specifically that you can consider in this manner. Next. So similarly, University of Texas at Dallas, one of the top UTs in the US, they also have a program which is the MBA program that's on campus particularly, and you could specifically apply for a GMAT or a GRE waiver, which means that if in case you have not given the GMAT or the GRE exam, you could still apply to this particular institution, but you could launch a separate application in order to showcase whether you have overall what kind of strengths you're coming from or what kind of quantitative backgrounds are you coming from. Maybe you've cleared the CFA level 1 or level 2, or maybe the work experience that you have is strongly quantitative as such, or strongly analytical. So you could specifically ask for a waiver, and UT Dallas is supposed to be very popular in terms of giving GRE GMAT waivers to international students. So, in fact, the Naveen Jindal School of Management is one of the top schools in the US comparatively, in order to particularly pursue a master's in management and master's of business administration. So, it really, builds on that. Another strong aspect of the Naveen Jindal School of Management is that their education philosophy is very different. It's not according to theoretical frameworks that they would teach you or something. It's all project based. So they would give you projects, they would give you case studies, they would give you significant industry exposure in order to understand what kind of leadership is required under an MBA program, and that is how it will specifically be built overall. And the other aspect is that this program is very flexible in this manner, so they would obviously have a very strong understanding of business trends. So for example, if business analytics is something which is very in fashion at the moment, so specifically this particular program would help you in terms of also understanding a bit of business analytics, a bit of marketing analytics, a bit of supply chain management, all of those kind of aspects. So in a nutshell, that is how specifically UT Dallas is placed. Next. So University of Massachusetts at Amherst, which is one of the best UMass Amherst universities in terms of the campuses, they also have an MBA program particularly, and that's also online if you want to specifically consider it. So the best thing about this program is that they also give you alum connects. So for instance, if some student, or a variety of students in your network or maybe outside your network, you will be able to communicate with them, connect with them, career advice. You'll be able to understand how to specifically navigate your particular career and all of those kind of aspects. So it's a very, very strong choice overall in terms of, particularly pursuing an MBA, an online MBA from here. Again, it's for working professionals particularly. So if you have time, you don't have time, it's again self-paced. So it's an online format program as such. Next. Similarly, Michigan State University, they have a broad MBA program. So this particular institution also does not require a GRE or a GMAT program overall, comparatively. So the broad MBA program covers list of specialized services, whether it is human resources, marketing, sales, finance, supply chain management, logistics management, fashion management, sports management. So you could specialize in a variety of things comparatively. With regard to Michigan State, again, it's a public college in the US, so the campus is huge, and you have amazing industry connects from this particular institution as well. So a lot of students who graduate out of this particular program specifically start working in automobiles. They will start working in hospitality. They would start working in a variety of other aspects comparatively. So this is how you can specifically think if in case you're planning on doing an MBA. So this would orient you again towards leadership, how to specifically delegate. They would also explain to you about and through case studies again. So it's a very practical and experiential program that you can specifically consider. So in a nutshell, Michigan State can be also a choice that you can specifically consider. Next. So similarly, UCLA, one of the best schools in the US, has an MBA program. It's through the UCLA Anderson School of Management. They have a variety of aspects. So in fact, they also have a very strong aspect on entrepreneurship. So they have an incubation center within the institution wherein you could specifically come up with your own entrepreneurial idea and you can specifically float it through the institution. So a very strong university that promotes entrepreneurship. Was again a public institution, so huge campus in the US, and of course have multiple things that you can specifically go ahead with. So again, in terms of the MBA program, it's more concentrated on leadership. So it through this particular program, if you're getting through, you might be able to get into advertising management. You might be able to get into, say, tech management. In terms of UCLA, they're also trying to integrate AI comparatively into their particular program. So that will also give you a lot of technical skills alongside, this particular aspect. And overall, it also depends on you. What kind of a background are you coming from? Maybe it's that you're coming through operations management or something on those particular lines. So you'll have a particular specialization in that manner as well. So, but with UCLA, the main thing is that, of course, if GMAT GRE is not required, then you need to elevate other aspects of your application as well. So, one, of course, will be that you need to have a very strong GPA. Probably, if you've graduated out of college maybe 5 years back, 3 years back, or something on those lines. So, the CGPA would count. Which kind of institution are you coming from? What is the rigor of courses that you studied? Say, for instance, if you studied less of quantitative courses, then you maybe preferred a little less in that manner. Then overall, the aspect again would come on to your work experience, wherein you would have to demonstrate what kind of skills have you garnered so far, what kind of challenges have you faced so far in terms of your studies, in terms of your experience in the particular industry. How did you rise above those particular challenges? So that is going to be a very important aspect. Other than this, you would have to also showcase to the institutions that, say for instance, right now, if you're working, say for instance, in human resources, and how have you collaborated with the finance department? How have you collaborated with the marketing department? What kind of solutions did you bring in, and what kind of initiatives did you take up in the organization and things like that? So this is what the UCLA program would, specifically require it for you to specifically showcase. So that's the strategy, for the program that you would have to specifically adopt. Then you would have to also showcase in this manner that uh, what skills don't I mean you that you've not garnered so far, particularly that would specifically help you in terms of that this particular program will help you in terms of bridging the gap as such. So this is how it will be. Next. So one of the other options, of course, is one of the best colleges out there, which is a Georgia Tech MBA. So the Georgia Tech MBA specifically deals with again work experience professionals, very similar overall, but Georgia Tech is more concentrated towards finance. It's more concentrated towards consulting. It's more concentrated towards operations as such. Even entrepreneurship, as a matter of fact, fares well in this institution, and plus Georgia Tech's MBA is also STEM designated, which specifically would help you in terms of finding jobs post your degree and having an international experience, so to say, where you could take up a particular role with an organization within the US. Because since Georgia Tech is actually primarily a technical institution, so that is what it will specifically help you with. Other than that, with regard to Georgia Tech, the business technology is again combined with a lot of innovation and things like that. So what happens is that how to leverage AI in your systems or in your organization, how do you specifically build it, how do you automate work, a lot of those kind of things specifically would be built. Again, another aspect here would be that when you're demonstrating your interest towards the application to Georgia Tech, you need to showcase a bit of the technical understanding that you have already built up. Maybe any sort of advanced skills that you've picked up along the way. Maybe it's in Python, maybe it's in R, maybe it's in MySQL. Those kind of things specifically would come into play. So with regard to Georgia Tech, that's one of the best places again to study and build up on an MBA. Next. So let's switch the gears to, of course, a few UK institutions as well. Just before we transition on to the UK, so yesterday I was, helping one of my students build up a college list overall in terms of, again, so this student wanted to pursue a Masters of Science in Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is an upcoming field. Particularly, it's not necessary that you have to specifically start your own thing, but after an entrepreneurship program, or maybe get into a family business or something like that. But you could always get into consulting. You could get into strategic management through entrepreneurship and innovation as a program. So a couple of institutions that are still open for students who are in fall 2024. One would of course be the University of Southern California. So University of Southern California does not require GRE GMAT for their MS Entrepreneurship and Innovation program. Babson is also there, so they have a program which is called MSc Management in Innovation. So that's also a fantastic program that you can specifically take into account, and that would actually help in terms of as the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. So both USC and Babson, these are private colleges in the US, and very well sought after institutions. So, in fact, USC, as a matter of fact, is on the West Coast, so that gives you a very strong headway in terms of finding jobs, finding your ability to network, and all of those kind of aspects as well. So, right, moving on, of course, you have the master's courses in the UK. Now, in the UK, a lot of institutions in the top ranks do not require a GMAT or a GRE for their master's courses, a postgraduate course. However, if you're wanting to study an MBA, then majority of those institutions would require a GMAT. Some institutions, of course, can waive off the GMAT GRE requirement for you. Some may be still optional, like maybe Cardiff or Nottingham, but the master's courses specifically do not require a GRE or a GMAT. So, of course, when you're applying to colleges like Oxford, Cambridge, London Economics, so depending on the program, there might be certain variations, but largely there are no GRE GMAT requirements comparatively. So I'll just highlight quickly a few of the institutions that you can specifically take a look at. Next. So with the UK, you have about 24 institutions which are called the Russell Group universities. The Russell Group universities are considered to be the most prestigious out of more than 900 institutions that are there in the country. So one of the prime examples is, of course, University of Oxford. So the University of Oxford has, multiple programs. They have physics. So they have something which is called MPhil in physics, which does not require a GMAT or a GRE. So imagine working or studying specifically in Oxford and learning this particular program and having to deal with advanced physics related theories and strategies and all of those kind of aspects, astrophysics. So that this program does not require that. Similarly, there is a program which is called the MSc in Economic and Social History, which is another option at Oxford that does not mandatorily require GMAT or GRE, right? So, in fact, if you're planning on doing something like an MSc in archaeology or MSc in history, particularly, then the GMAT or the GRE exam is not required as such comparatively with GMAT. And of course, with Oxford and Cambridge, of course, there are different colleges that specifically have different programs. So accordingly, you would have to apply and look at the particular college. However, Oxford and Cambridge are supposed to be the most competitive institutions in the world overall. So the chances of admissions can be very competitive. So you would have to really look into your profile, and that is how you would have to specifically build things up as such. Right? So I don't know if we have Rashmi on Ribu, but if she's on, so then we can also just quickly highlight her achievements as well here. So until then, moving on next. Okay, so the University of Cambridge, of course, so they have two programs. One is the MPhil in Finance, the other is MPhil in Management. Again, these are Masters of Philosophy, so these are research-based programs comparatively. So these programs again do not require this. So in fact, University of Cambridge has a program which is called Mathematical Finance, a Masters in Mathematical Finance. So that is also a very strong choice as such with regard to everything, right? So, with regard to University of Cambridge, we have specifically business management. We have finance. There are other programs in history, in MSc social history and archaeology, and all of those kind of programs again, which are not requiring the GMAT GRE program comparatively. Next, similarly, if you're planning on applying to London School of Economics and Political Science, again, a very top-notch institution in the UK, one of the best places where you could study economics from, you could study, anything related to political science, public policy, those kind of aspects. So similarly, LSE has a program which is called a Masters in Public Administration and Government, which does not require the GMAT or the GRE exam. They also have an economics and management program which does not, specifically require it. So with these programs overall, when you study it, of course, it's going to be more theoretical, but it's a very career-setting university. Typical requirements is a 2-1, which is in their language in the UK. If you're doing a 2-1, which means here in India you're doing a first class honors. So for anybody who's studying in University of Delhi, will be specifically that'll be about 65 or 60% and above. For a lot of institutions which are on the private and the state side, then it'll be about 8.5 out of 10. So the typical offers come into this particular manner. LSE is a very theoretical institution. So of course, naturally, when you're writing your application to LSE, you have to write something which is called the Statement of Academic Purpose, which is 1,000 to 1,200 word document, very theoretical, and it has to specifically, shout out your theoretical advances. So what kind of courses have you done? What kind of research papers have you written? Where have you published them? What kind of learnings do you have? Any sort of theories which relate to these kind of programs? That is what you would have to also specifically consider. So these are multiple options that you can specifically consider in terms of the UK, also London School of Economics. Next. Similarly, in terms of the UK, you have something which is called King's College London. So King's College London, majority of the universities, programs do not require a GMAT or a GRE exam or any sort of other standardized exams except for IELTS exam, for instance. But the King's College is, of course, known for two programs largely, which is the Mental Health Studies program, which of course is for clinical practitioners, policy makers, and things on those lines. The Public Health program also is there. So the Public Health program would put you right into policy making. It would put you into with public organizations, governments, and things like that, wherein you're working as a policy development expert comparatively. So King's, of course, is in London, and over the years, of course, King's has become very competitive, very very competitive. Their admission rates have fallen both for undergraduate as well as for graduate students overall. But the thing is that if your spiel is the right in the right frame, and of course if your profile is aligned in that particular manner, then King's College London definitely is a very good college to specifically study. It's very research focused, very theoretical again, but again a very very strong choice comparatively. Next. So similarly, Imperial College London. So the clear demarcation is that in the UK, University of Cambridge and Imperial are considered to be tech institutions overall. Versus if you're thinking on the lines of the other aspects comparatively, so you will have Ribu, if you could just pull back one slide. Yeah. So, Imperial College London, with regard to their programs, so since it's a tech-based institution, so you could do a lot of computational related programs in biomedical engineering, engineering sciences, those kind of things which do not require a GRE or a GMAT, right? Other than that, Imperial College also has an ICBS, which is the Imperial College Business School. With Imperial College Business School, you will have multiple aspects with regard to probably you could study something like strategic marketing, MSc in strategic marketing, no work experience required for that. A master's in management, no work experience required for that. MSc in finance, no work experience required for that, and no GRE GMAT. So Imperial again has a diversity of courses that you could specifically study, but again without the requirement of submitting a GMAT or a GRE score comparatively, right? Next. Similarly, University College London is also there. So in terms of University College London, they again it's so worldwide it's ranked about eighth. In the UK, it's one of the top few Russell groups comparatively. And the thing with the UCL overall is that it's again oriented a little more towards social sciences, commerce, humanities, those kind of related areas particularly. With UCL, you could definitely study a lot of programs. Of course, entrepreneurship is one, management is the other. You could also particularly study MS Computer Science in UCL Imperial as well as such. So again, no GRE or a GMAT requirement is there, but typically I have seen students getting through with an 8.5 and above CGPA out of 10 in India. So you need to have a very strong focus on that particular regard as well. Next. So University of Manchester, one of the best universities and business schools also. So they have science programs, they have engineering programs also with no requirement particularly of standardized testing. So with GRE or GMAT, with University of Manchester, the MBS, which is the Alliance Business School at University of Manchester, they have a multiple set of programs. One of the best programs that I've seen over there is, of course, something called a Masters in Business Psychology. So they teach you a bit about business management psychology. Their orientation is a bit more towards organizational behavior comparatively. You could also study a master's in management or something called an MSc in management in MBS, Manchester Business School. So that is something that you can particularly also consider. Next. Trinity College Dublin. Now let's shift gears into the European side. Of course, there are a lot of universities, particularly to cover. But so Trinity College Dublin is also another aspect that you can consider. So Trinity College Dublin would have a lot of majors relating from social sciences to business to a lot of things. So you do not particularly require a GRE or a GMAT for those as such. It's one of the best institutions in Ireland. So typically, at the moment, if you're somebody who's very much into tech, Ireland is actually the right place to be in terms of Europe, because a lot of companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they are specifically there. So their job market has, in fact, directed towards that particular scenario. So gone are those days wherein you were thinking just about the US, in terms of being very good in terms of computer science. But even as a matter of fact, with Trinity College Dublin and University College Dublin, of course, It's one of the best places to study. Next. Coming on to a lot of universities in Australia at the moment, with a lot of the things that are going on in the international landscape, specifically with paucity of jobs in one country, and particularly a country reducing the number of students who can specifically apply for the visa. Australia largely remains untouched. So there are, about eight institutions in Australia typically, which are called the Group of Eight institutions. Namely, there University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, Monash University. So University of Melbourne and Monash, they are in Melbourne itself. University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, they're located within Sydney. As a matter of fact, you will also have other institutions as such as Australian National University would be there, which is in Canberra. University of Western Australia is there. University of Queensland is there. University of Adelaide would be there. So constitute the group of eight institutions. Then, other than that, a group that exists in Australia, which is related to the tech-based institutions. So you'll have RMIT, which is the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. You'll have UTS, which is the of Technology Sydney. You'll have Queensland University of Technology. So these institutions are also prevalent in Australia as such. So, keeping that thing particularly in mind, so there are tons of opportunities that are specifically coming across. So, Australia typically would be known for their social sciences. Typically, areas like psychology are doing very well. In fact, psychology is at the top of their skill list, which specifically means that getting a permanent residency in the country is not that difficult overall. But Australia is also known for finance. It's also known for business management and a lot of those kind of areas comparatively. So in terms of Australia, there are so you can specifically choose a lot of institutions again. But if you want to pursue a master's in business administration, then you would require GRE GMAT in most places. But typically, a master's degree you do not require. So, Masters of Management, University of Melbourne, Masters of Public Administration, Business Analytics, with Australian National University. So, you look at the level of depth of the courses and the innovative aspects of these courses as well. Because with Australian National University, you'll have a Masters of Applied Data Analytics, right, which uses advanced statistics along with computer technologies in order to deliver, data analytical solutions, particularly Masters of Project Management, Master of Public Administration. In fact, there are new courses that have also specifically started coming across. So you will have areas like overall like masters in real estate management, masters in construction management, masters in this, masters in a lot of those kind of programs have also come up. So you can definitely consider Australia to be a definite choice as such. Next. So similarly, in terms of University of Queensland, so again, since one of the best industries in Australia is of course the hospitality industry as well. So you have different programs such as Master of Tourism, Hotel and Event Management, Masters of Sustainable Energy, Masters of Business Marketing, Masters of Economics, those kind of institutions. Again, these two, University of Queensland and University of Western Australia, they fall in the top leagues, which is the group of eight or the Ivy Leagues of Australia, and some of the most sought after institutions in Australia comparatively. So again, these programs that I'm telling you about, they are not requiring any sort of GRE or GMAT. Next. Similarly, in terms of other aspects like University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, again in Sydney, these are also pretty amazing programs. So they have a unique program which is with Sydney, a Master of Marine Science with management comparatively. So they teach you about supply chain, they teach you about logistics along with marine sciences in this particular program. Other than that, they also have a Master of Professional Accounting that you can do, which is MPA, Masters of Strategic Public Relations, which is more related towards advertising, journalism, mass communication. University of New South Wales has a Master of Journalism and Communication as such, a Master of Public Policy and Governance. And then, of course, you could also pursue something which is called LLM, a Master of Business Law. In fact, throughout the world, if in case it is that you want to go to law school after completing an undergraduate degree, which is either a BLLB or an LLB, So you do not need to write any sort of entrance exams in order to specifically study in countries like the US, the UK, Australia, Canada, those kind of institutions. Of course, you need to, ideate on those particular aspects, that do you meet the entry requirements of the institution or not. But as such, it's a very, very strong choice comparatively to also pursue something like an LLM in these institutions. So, in that particular manner. Next. Similarly, Monash, one of the best places to actually pursue business administration and related programs, particularly within management. So Monash also has an MPA. They have something which is called a Masters in Advanced Finance, which is more quantitative comparatively. Master of International Business, which is fused with strategic thinking, marketing, those kind of aspects. University of Adelaide, of course, has the Master of Marketing or a Master of Commerce, Advanced Economics. These kind of programs specifically do very well in both these particular institutions. Next. So of course, there are of course a lot of institutions. There are institutions like University of Texas at Austin. There's University of Colorado. There's University of Delaware. There's George Mason University. So all of these particular institutions, they have certain programs where GMAT GRE is not required. So the entire idea of this webinar is to actually make you aware about this particular aspect, that it's not necessary for you to have a very strong standardized test in order to study in a very top notch college in the world. It also depends on a lot of other aspects, so now what happens is, typically I have a lot of students with whom I'm working individually, and my team is also working individually. So they specifically deal with graduate students. So within graduate students, the main thing over here is that you have to also identify what kind of things can you do specifically that are outstanding in your profile. So typically, we've seen internationally that a lot of students who go internationally, they would have done some sort of volunteering work with a particular non-profit organization or something like that. But that is not necessary. It's not necessary in terms of specifically doing a volunteering aspect, but instead think of a project that you can take up on your own. And that particular project would specifically help you in terms of making your entire aspect unique. So I remember I had a student from Lady Shri Ram College, particularly. She wanted to pursue a social project, and we ideated for a couple of weeks on this particularly. And then we immediately came up with this idea, both the student and us, that typically, so she had this entire idea that she wants to help, the underprivileged community a little more on the economic side. So we found out, if there are any sort of communities outside her college and things like that. And luckily, we found the cobbler community, which specifically were facing a lot of financial hardships. So what she decided initially was that let's start on using a sustainable material, which is discarded denim, and that particular sustainable material would help in terms of, and that would be like a USP in terms of selling the shoes and things like that. So she instructed the cobblers to specifically make these many shoes, and then she advertised that very significantly through her own sources and through her college platforms and things like that, and immediately increased the sales of those members, and was about 192%, if I remember it correctly, in terms of the jump of the revenue that they had achieved. So aspects of these things which are quantifiable, which specifically have these aspects. Other than that, you have to also specifically supplement your college education with online courses. So online courses which are very technical, maybe you want to learn something which is in demand at the moment, like Python or MySQL, those kind of aspects. So you should take an online course, but it should not stop there. It should never stop there. So it should be that once you've done the online course, then do the advanced course of that particular institution, or maybe differently, then implement that in a practical manner in your day-to-day life. So for instance, I remember very clearly that I had done a particular online course on it was child psychology, and then whatever I had learned, then I was able to administer that in my clinic initially. So those kind of things would really make a lot of difference in your profile. Moreover, research papers. So the best thing about college is that you get to learn about research. If you are not being able to harness that kind of knowledge that your college maybe or your university might be giving you. So it's better that you do independently, but at least write a research paper, get it published into a journal. Maybe it is an international journal or it is a local journal and things like that. So that is how, specifically it could. Moreover, the next aspect that you have to also consider is that moving in that direction, probably doing any sort of tech startups or entrepreneurial startups also helps your cause, because you get to learn a lot of things theoretically, experientially, and that also adds a lot of value and weight to your profile. And then your spiel in terms of your statement of purpose or your master's personal statement, all of those kind of things specifically would, help you in terms of becoming a very competitive applicant. Of course, it's not a cookie cutter strategy that everybody has to do the same things, but the ideas can be different. But another thing is, because if you're a college graduate listening to this webinar, or if you're somebody who's right now in your first year and not sure that how can you specifically go about with your master's applications typically, so you have to also understand that these aspects are very much important in terms of showcasing depth. When I say depth, that means over a period of time that you've done certain aspects in your activity list, and you've been able to also go extra notches above in terms of your profile. So that is how specifically we go about it. So keeping everything in mind, you should definitely consider, building up your CV, building up your profile. It should not be at the last moment. It should not be that, specifically that your applications are due tomorrow and you're thinking of profile building today. So it has to be a continuous effort in terms of building it up. So year on year, I do about 200 students, 250 students by and large, wherein we specifically, and that to graduate students overall, wherein we're helping them craft their unique applications, your unique profiles, and then specifically also giving an in-depth analysis about, say, one thing versus the other thing. Does this work in your profile a bit more? Does this not work in your profile a bit more? Those kind of aspects you have to really consider in all of this aspect. So these things are very much important in terms of understanding in your profile. So for those of you who are listening to our webinar, we're doing a one-on-one session with all of you. So, we would reach out to you, or you can reach out to us, wherein we'll specifically help you in terms of learning about how to craft a very unique profile, what are the things that you should be looking at, how to build up your college list, all of those kind of things specifically. And for a very limited amount of time, we're also doing a discount on our counselings. So you can definitely reach out to us. We'll be very much happy in terms of listening to you, understanding from you, and then specifically looking at a thing above and beyond comparatively. Right. So that's it from all of us. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. I hope that we've been able to think on the lines of moving forward in terms of your college journey, and that is how we'll specifically go about it. Thank you so much.